is a bit of a joke in the league, like you talked about, because you don't know if he's going to look like Tom Brady out there or if he's going to look like the second coming of
one of us
or Ryan Leaf or something like that. I mean, you don't know. And so we're not going to sit here and talk about Blake Bortles. Like you said, it's like beating a dead horse or jaguar. But yeah, he is what he is. And I think that's a situation that, will dictate a lot of their season for them. But their defense is becoming a huge part of who this team is. What scares me even more, though, Justin, about their team and their prospects for this year, even outside of the defense, is that I think Leonard Fournette is your superstar on this team. It's not Blake Bortles, and it's not any of your wide receivers. It's not your tight end. There's nothing really to talk about with the offense. And we saw moments last year like that Pittsburgh game where, I'm going to be honest with you, I was just flat out surprised that they jumped out to that kind of lead. And then when Pittsburgh started coming back, I was surprised that they were able to keep up, because I figured at some point, if it got into a shootout, Pittsburgh was bound to win that game. And, Jacksonville found a way to win even when their defense gave up 40 some odd points. I don't think they can get into that kind of situation a lot of times this year. They don't want to. They want their defense to dictate the flow of the game and how many points are scored and how many points are required of Blake Bortles and some of these non-stars outside of Leonard Fournette. But rumors coming out of camp are that Fournette looks really good, maybe potentially lost some weight, is ready to make some different moves and be that downhill power back that he is, but then also have some additional tricks up his sleeve. But he's the star, and this team, I think, will go as Fournette and Blake Bortles goes, despite how good their defense is. So they can mouth off and talk all they want, but the powder keg here, really, to me, and not to disagree with you, but it's not their defense. It's the fact that they just don't have an identity on offense, and if other teams figure that out and exploit that, they're going to struggle to win games, even if their defense can hold their opponent to 14 or 17 points.
And that's really where the crux of this question came from, was the fact that you know what you're going to get out of the defense. They're going to play really great football. They're going to shut a lot of teams down. As a Bronco fan, it's something that's come up. We've talked about it in shows prior, even in last season. One of the issues that team had was a really good defense that would come out early in games, get a big stop, and the offense or special teams would do something stupid, put them in a bad position, and you look up at the scoreboard and all of a sudden it's 10-0, 14-0, and the offense isn't built and equipped to come back from that. The defense is playing from behind. They can't just get downhill and rush the quarterback. They're getting the ball run at them. There's a lot of play action. And with this defense being as outspoken, especially with guys like Jalen Ramsey, who's had issues now with the media, and then he's going and doing this article and he's talking smack about others, it's like he's one step away from basically trashing this offense, trashing Blake Bortles, where you start to wonder, okay, how is that going to affect this team? How's that going to affect the locker room? Because I think you're right. Offensively, outside of Fournette, who's their guy? Is it going to be Marquise Lee? Is it going to be Dede Westbrook? Who's the guy that's going to step up? And the fact is Bortles going to be a guy that's going to be able to consistently get them the football and put them in a position to score points? History would say no, that in 1 week, yeah, he'll have him out and he'll have a 350-yard game and he'll throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns. It's the next week when he comes out and he's 8 for 23 and he's got 67 yards and 3 interceptions, and the defense is pitching a shutout, and yet they find themselves having to continue to try to stop the other team's offense that keeps putting pressure on them and getting better field position. To me, I think that's where the questions come in on this team. If Bortles just does his job and doesn't turn the football over, Eric, I don't think we have to worry about this. If they can stay basically ahead of the chains, if they don't put their defense in a bad position, I think their defense can help them and put them in good position, give them good field position. Bortles just can't turn the football over, can't throw the careless interceptions, can't fumble the football, has to take care of this team. I think they'll be fine. Vegas, Eric, has them at 9 this year. Do you like the over or under for Jacksonville?
I'm going with the over based on the momentum that they have from last year. I'm going with 10 wins. I said that Houston was going to finish second in this division. I believe that because I believe that Jacksonville will win the division. And actually, in my mind, they have the easiest schedule out of everyone there, especially if you look at who they've got at home. Just like I said with Houston, I think they've got the easiest schedule. They've got the most potential to win. But I reserve the right halfway through the season to abandon ship on this one, because if what we see out of Blake Bortles is a complete disaster or dumpster fire, then I'm pulling that 10 wins prediction right off the table. But I think they could get to 10.
I agree with you. I can't disagree on this one. I think they find a way to get over 9 wins where they land. I don't think there'll be too many over 10. I think they could, if they got to 11-5, it wouldn't surprise me. It's just going to be, can this team stay together and do what they need to do to win football games as a unit and not fracture? We've seen it happen with other teams. It's just going to be, can they do that? Can they stick to their game plan and get it done? We know how good this defense can be, but we also saw last year them get exposed in that Steeler game where the offense had to carry them as well. It's just, can Bortles do that? Can they play complementary football and pick each other up? I think that's going to be the big question on this team. But last year proved that in a surprise, they found a way to get to 10. And you would have to think that they have more confidence in what they did last year, that they're going to be able to repeat that and be hungrier to get back to that AFC Championship game. So, yeah, I'm going to take the over as well. So, Eric, that'll do it for segment 1 here. We just went through the AFC South. When we come back, we'll jump into the AFC West. A lot of questions here. A surprise team Vegas has to win the division. When we get through the AFC West, we'll stick in a quick talk-worthy segment. Eric talked about in the show opener, there's a team, one of the big 3, that is having major sponsorship issues to the point they might not even be able to field a car next year. Unbelievable. I don't believe it's being covered enough. We'll talk about that and why when we come back. Welcome back to segment 2. It's time to jump into the AFC West, the division that's near and dear to my heart as a Bronco fan. And well, Vegas has blessed me with the chance to talk about the Broncos first, because they don't have a lot of confidence in what they're going to be able to do this year. And I have to say, I have my own questions about this team. They were 5-11 last year in Vance Joseph's first year. They had a very long losing streak that made life not so fun for Bronco fans. But this year they go out, they get a quarterback. That seemed to be what they really needed last year. They went out, were aggressive on the opening of free agency, bring Case Keenum in. Bradley Chubb falls to them at number 5 in the draft, so they add another pass rusher to this team and this defense that now you're starting to wonder what they have left in the tank. So, Eric, when I look at this team, I think the biggest question is Case Keenum what they needed to get them over the hump and capitalize on this defense? Or is there just still too many questions on this team to think that they're going to be a playoff contender?
I'm certainly not going to sit across the table from you and pretend that I know the Broncos better than you do, so I'm going to let you answer a lot of that, and I'll keep this pretty brief. But I like Case Keenum. I appreciated what he did for the Vikings last year. I thought he was definitely worth some team taking a chance on him because I think he earned that right. And so I'm going to just say that I hope he is what the Denver Broncos need at quarterback. I think Paxton Lynch has shown that he's not the answer. I think that, we've gone through the Osweiler experiments and things. So I hope for your sake that Keenum has just a part of his career, whether it's a couple of years or whether it bridges that gap for you. But I'd like to see him succeed. I know you and I talked about the draft, how getting a defensive player like Chubb in the draft was a fantastic move. I think that is nothing but good things for their defense. I think the pieces are there. What I need to see out of the Broncos is more from those wide receivers again. Now, I don't know. You would know from watching the games pretty much all the time whether their receivers were slowing down or whether that was a function of the different quarterbacks coming in and out and practice time with different quarterbacks and game time with different quarterbacks. That can certainly affect your timing and route running as a receiver. So I don't know whether to blame them or the quarterbacks for that. And I know there's some questions at running back. So I really hope, to the point of your question, that Case Keenum is the guy. I hope that's the future of this team for at least the next couple of years, the foreseeable future. But I'm going to let you get into the details of where we're at as a Denver Broncos table.
Well, just as a fan of football, what Case Keenum did last year for the Vikings in that playoff game, and then to basically be shown the door that the Vikings really didn't want him. They were all in on Kirk Cousins. I think you kind of, as just a football fan and a human, you kind of have to root for Case Keenum. So obviously I hope he comes in and has a great year for this team. Eric, there's a ton of questions on this team, and it starts up front with their offensive line. Now, Denver did some things to try to fix that offensive line. Obviously, last year's draft, they brought in Garrett Bowles. They made a trade with the Cardinals, brought in Jared Vedir. So they've tried to fix this offensive line. It's just going to come down to, did they fix it enough to protect the quarterback and give him time, and can they get a run game established? Because every component of their offense that was failing seemed to have something to do with the line. They didn't have great play out of their running backs. They let C.J. Anderson walk. They keep messing around with Devontae Booker, but I can tell you, I think Royce Freeman, their third-round pick from Oregon, is going to be the guy that ends up playing a lot for them and probably starting for them, because he's looked very good every time he's touched the football for them in preseason. But there's just a lot of questions on this team, and I don't know if Vance Joseph's the guy. I have a lot of concerns about him. I don't know that he's going to be the guy that can get this team where they need to go. And I don't know that how long the leash is for him this year, because last year was pretty much a debacle. To have an 8-game losing streak with this team, with that defense, that's just unacceptable. And the whole Paxton Lynch experiment project, whatever you want to call it, that needs to be over. They need to cut bait with him. It's just not going to work there. The fans are already booing him because they're tired of him. This is year number 3, and he's no better than he was as a rookie. He should be coming in for second and third stringers and looking the part of at least a competent quarterback, but he looks awful. He looks like every game the worst quarterback that's on the field for either team, no matter how deep the other team gets in. If they're playing a third or fourth guy, Paxton Lynch is always the worst guy on this team. He doesn't have a future with this team. They need to move on from him and either stick with Chad Kelly at the number 2 quarterback position, or go out, like I said last week, maybe explore trade for Teddy Bridgewater or another veteran guy that can come in, help Case Keenum in his preparations, and be able to step in if something happens to Keenum. But Eric, I got a lot of questions on this team. Vegas has them at 7. I'll tell you right now, I think that that's probably going to be a push for them. They might find a way to 8-8, but I'm really concerned about this team, that they have so many holes. I'm not sure that they can plug them all in one year.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you, because I'm sure that you've digested the schedule quite thoroughly as a Broncos fan. I think the challenge for this division, as we start talking about it here over the next couple of teams, is that they're going to be facing the NFC West. So, anytime you're talking Seattle, you're talking about a Los Angeles Rams team that's now a factor in the National Football League. I don't know where Arizona's at, but I feel like they've got to be a little bit better than they were last year. So you got that to deal with. Then you've got a couple of games, in their own division that are going to be tough week in and week out. Then you throw in a random game against Pittsburgh, and you've got, so I just feel like it's going to be tough for me to get to the over. I don't want to make you mad, but I got to go with the under.
No, I took the under. I fully expect that this year's going to be better than last year, but it's still going to be a struggle. Like you said, even in this division, Denver is the lowest team that we're talking about from Vegas. So Vegas thinks the other 3 teams in this division is going to be better than they are. So to sit there and think that they're going to find a way to win over 2 or 3 games in the division is pretty difficult. You start to add in Seattle, then the Rams, the 49ers are up and coming. And then again, you have the AFC North that they play. So you're going to have a game against Pittsburgh, and then you find some wins maybe against Cleveland or Cincinnati or Baltimore. But this is just a tough schedule for this team to think that they're going to be able to come in and add all these different pieces and it's going to work. I think this is another team that you could see just not get off to a quick start, kind of struggle, and then maybe try to find their groove as the season goes on. They're going to be adding in a lot of youth on this team. Jake Butt didn't play any for them, the tight end from Michigan. He sat out last year. Jeff Hireman's still a younger guy that hasn't played a lot. Like I said, they have a rookie in Royce Freeman that could be playing running back. You're going to see a lot of Cortland Sutton on this team at wide receiver. There's a lot of young pieces on this team that is going to take a little bit of time to get all these guys up and ready to go for this year. Eric, a team last year that we had very high expectations for, as many others did, coming off of what they did in 2016, was the Oakland Raiders. They fell well short of the expectation. They only went 6-10 last year, and that actually cost Coach Jack Del Rio his job. And the long-courted, long-rumored love affair they had to bring John Gruden back finally came true. Not a surprise that the Raiders would basically step back in time and get a coach like Gruden and then pay him a contract that's reported at 10 years and $100 million. But Gruden said that he won't make that and he won't take their money if he doesn't win. Who knows about that? Eric, the question that I have is something we talked about a little bit with the Titans and Mike Mularkey. We've seen over the years as teams start to make head coaching decisions, there's been a youth movement, or there's been a movement to get younger guys and give them an opportunity. It worked for the Eagles with Doug Peterson. We've seen Sean McVay have success. Kyle Shanahan